Okay, hi everyone. I just thought I'll start with the music of the gong because now, today and yesterday was a fiesta of the Kambulo. So I thought I just wanted to kind of get that feeling out to you before we start. Thank you very much. My name is Yuki, and together with Tetsu, we'll be presenting about the experience on the Bast fiber textile and barkcloth culture in Barangay Kambulo in Ifugao. You can see on this screen how the Bast fiber textile from Kambulo looks like. Now, just a quick note here about the differences between the Bast fiber textile and barkcloth. The Bast fiber textile is a woven fabric using bast fiber thread extracted from the tree, while the barkcloth is a non-woven fabric by beating and spreading the tree bark. As you know, the Bast fiber textile and barkcloth culture is declining around the world, but there are still some being used in Japan. The three bast fiber listed here are from the top, Japanese linden, wisteria, paper mulberry, lobed elm, and hibiscus. Hibiscus circled in pink is no longer woven in Japan, but I have circled the paper mulberry in green because this was exactly the reason why we were interested in Kambulo. So while we were researching, we found two references that mention about the Bast fiber textiles in Kambulo. The first one was written by Nobuko Hiroi on her field research, based on her research, field research in 1982, about the Ifugao backstrap weaving using different bast fibers. And the other book was published in 2007 called Material Choices, with a chapter written by Lynn Milgram, who is with us today, Lynn, and who is and describes about the bast fiber production in Kambulo, with specific reference made on local paper mulberry tree. So if the paper mulberry tree is really used in Kambulo, will the textile woven in Kambulo be very similar to the one that is woven in Tokushima Prefecture in Japan called tafu? So with this question, to find out, we went to Kambulo in February 2023. When we arrived in Kambulo, we found 4 women still weaving bast fiber textile using a backstrap loom. They are from the left, Josephine, Agapita, Nena, and Felisa. All started weaving bast fiber textile in mid-1990s when the Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement, the PRRM, launched a program to support the 15 bast fibers in Kambulo. Lisa and Janet on the upper side, corner, do not weave as they feel that they cannot sustain their living, so they cultivate rice and gives massage to the tourists. And Jessie and Bernie on the bottom are barangay police and carpenters, and are among those Kambulo men who beats barkcloth. For 2 years, we visited Kambulo 6 times to listen and to talk and to learn from these people. Ifugao barkcloth has been viewed as the past thing, so it was very nice to know that it still exists. The barkcloth was never for sale, but prepared only for the festive occasions. And having both the bast fiber textile and the barkcloth in one location is very, very unique worldwide. Materials comes from the surrounding wild forest, and for design variation, the weavers were encouraged to find other colored fibers from the forest. Originally, they had about 4 to 6 different bast fiber varieties, but now they expanded to about 9 varieties. One of them is gumamela, which is a cultivated variety used for bundling the rice straw after harvesting, which helped actually the older weavers for easier access to fiber instead of having to go to the forest to search for the fibers. Well, for the bark cloth, one specific variety called topia is being used and shares another one called hua, which can be used also for weaving. The ability to find these materials from the forest, as you can imagine, is very crucial and fundamental. Yet the younger generation is losing such ability. Now here are the 9 bast fibers used for weaving in Kambulo, with their names attached to it. I'm missing 2 in this picture, so I put it up in the top section, the names. The jacket that I'm wearing today, if you can see, is made and woven from hua, which is the white one. And then this stripe, the brown one is bakhit, the one on the corner, each corner, bottom corners. So Tetsu will later on, through his slides, explain a little bit about these plants. So last year, we participated in both the Banawe-wide Imbaya Festival, as well as Kambulo's fiesta, Tungao Fiesta, which is now ongoing, and saw the people from Kambulo and Pula wearing bast fiber textiles and bark cloths. This really seems to us like a visual expression of cultural identity, as Lynn Milgram once wrote. Others used to wear them until maybe around mid-1980s, but the tradition sadly died out with no successor, told us so Ms. Leili Bayer of the Banawe Museum. So this picture was taken during our second visit to Kambulo in March 2023, with Tetsu wearing his vest, woven in Japan, using paper mulberry, in a weaving pattern called Maya Leno weaving, which comes from Guatemala. Seeing this, the Kambulo weavers expressed extreme interest to wanting to learn how to weave this pattern using their own bast fibers. So for our next visit in June 2023, 3 Japanese weavers accompanied us to Kambulo for a weaver-to-weaver mutual learning exchange. From the right is Senoo Naoko. She is a shifu weaver and uses the Japanese paper thread, and had a chance to make bark cloth during her previous visit 3 months ago. Next is Ishikawa Fumie. She is a paper mulberry kozo cultivator from Tokushima Prefecture, and also a backstrap weaver herself, who actually made the Tetsu's vest. Both Naoko and Fumie are featured in an ongoing film called Shizuri, which explores the cloth origin based on a Japanese myth and traces the Austronesian footsteps in search of paper mulberry from Taiwan to Sulawesi, Indonesia, to Papua New Guinea. I've placed the QR code of the movie blurb at the ending slide if anyone would be interested. And also I brought 10 minutes movie preview in a stick. If someone would be interested, please approach us. So next to me is Hoshino Toshie, who's an experienced backstrap weaver who learned how to weave in Guatemala and Mexico and warped in figure 8, which is different from the way that the Kambulo weavers warp, which is a circular warping. And she taught Fumie how to weave in the Maya Leno variation from Guatemala, and that's how she actually wove Tetsu's vest. The Kambulo's weavers took the Japanese weavers to the forest to show the trees used to extract the fibers, but no paper mulberry was found. Then they showed the steps for bast fiber weaving and the bark cloth beating. For the bast fiber weaving, first remove the outer skin of the bark to extract the inner layer, which is whitish, and pound that dried fiber for easier splitting, then ply join and twist using a spindle, then boil with ash to remove any organic residuals, and after drying, the fiber is made into a thread ball, finally warped and woven. While the bark cloth after you cut the desired length of the bark, continuously beat the log with care so that it wouldn't tear until the outer skin starts to loosen up. And then after a while, it completely slips off in a tube form. Then design that into hats and vests while the bark cloth is still wet. There are several pointers for kambulo weaving. First, the backstrap loom, using a body tension, is warped circular without a reed and can be traced across many of the Austronesian cultures. And second, the way for using the spindle to ply join the fiber and twist is not seen in other places. And lastly, the textiles are designed in stripes using natural colors of bast fibers without dyeing. During the learning exchange, the kambulo weavers learned, as they wanted, the Maya Leno variation weaving patterns and also different ways of warping off the loom, as well as sprang weaving. And towards the end of the learning exchange, both weavers got together and shared their learnings, what their experience was, discussed foreseen challenges, and bounced new ideas for the potential future. After parting ways, both the kambulo weavers and the Japanese weavers continued on with their creativity. So the kambulo weavers are now weaving obi belts for the Japanese kimono. And Lisa and Janet are inviting more weavers to join even within and beyond kambulo, and started to weave the bast fiber bracelets, headbands, and mobile phone bags. Well, actually, it's these ones. This is the bracelet. And this is a sample of the mobile phone bag. Actually, I weave myself for the sake of trying to, be together with the weavers. So I've done this. I'm going to circulate this. You can touch it because it looks rough, but it's actually quite soft. There you go. Just make sure you return it to me because it was a hell of a lot of an effort. And then the Lisa and Janet is also offering a bast fiber exposure tour to the tourist. And Hoshino-san, she actually went back to Japan, and first attempt to weave with using the bast fiber was to use and test the gumamela fiber as warp. Because at that time, kambulo weavers were not warping with gumamela, but after seeing the success of how the good result had woven with the warping of the gumamela, now the kambulo weavers are actually weaving both warp and weft with gumamela. Fumie used the spindle to ply join her own kozo fiber back in Japan, and after seeing that it was easier for some people to do it that way, she decided to reproduce the spindle and taught the other Japanese how to use that through workshops. And Naoko now creates translucent bark cloth from paper mulberry from her garden or a farm after her kambulo beating experience and showcases them during her exhibit. Now, Mr. Yamaguchi Genbei, on the corner, is another cast member of the Shizuri movie, and he is the 10th generation obi purveyor in Kyoto. He saw the woven obi by the kambulo weavers, and he really liked it. So he provided feedbacks for the obi to be of an exact size, washed properly, address the stickiness, tight weaving, and color transferring risks. After hearing these messages, the kambulo weavers started to address this issue through various experiments. For example, the two photo on the right shows the dipping of the back thread into a rice paddy that contains natural iron salt to avoid the brown color from coming out when washed, while the thread itself turned into darker black color as the arrows are pointing. And as you see in the middle photo, bacteria fermentation scarring removed the sliminess and gave the gumamela fiber a bright white color. Now the shrinkage rate is also being considered when the weavers are warping to achieve the exact size and length required for the obi. These attempts actually came from their old know-how, as well as some hints given by the Japanese weavers. And the good news is that Mr. Genbei and us are planning for an exhibit in March 2026 in Kyoto, and one objective is to showcase these Kambulo products. Now, as the story has shown, the Bast fiber textile and barkcloth culture are surrounded by many different actors. Starting with these that we already spoke about during this talk, and adding to this are school teachers, photographers, the museum curators and academia, and other actors occasionally join, such as the fiesta participants, the students studying outside of Kambulo, designers, tourists, tourism industry, and eco-cultural guides. The Bast fiber textile and barkcloth culture has now transformed the so-called the cultural commons, which Tetsu will briefly discuss. So over to you, Tetsu.
So let me start by sharing my findings so far on the botanical names of the 9 bast fiber plants for weaving, together with another one for bark clothes. And I'm hoping to receive inputs on these plants from experts. Okay. I found bakhi, gutu, rungi, and rai on the classic ethnobotanical literature, as well as on the dictionary of local language. Both indicate that these 4 plants are Urticaceae family, namely nettles, which have been used to make clothes across the world. Among them, the cultivated variety, rami, is highly valued, especially in the traditional textile communities in Japan and Korea, and also China in the past. On the other hand, I'm not so sure if there are places where wild species, particularly shrubs, not grass, varieties, are actively used to make clothes besides Kambulo. Aloe, or Himalayan giant nettle in Nepal, may be one of such kind. The Kambulo weavers use at least 4 such nettle species. For example, gutu may be Piputrus arborescens, which I saw in southern Okinawa called nunomao. It literally means nettle for clothes, and was used to make clothes in the past. And by the way, bakhi is the local name given to myself by the Kambulo community. And these plants on the slides are not mentioned either on the 2 references. So I needed to check with pictures and descriptions online and printed plant guides. On that basis, I suspect that Pluit, Hapotan, and Gumamela are Malvaceae family. As mentioned by Yukiko, in Japan, hibiscus species such as mutabulis were used in the past to produce the fabric called bidanashi on Koshiki Island in southern Kyushu. The islanders particularly preferred this fabric to silk, reportedly because of its nice feel and breathability. Their leaf looks actually like hapotan. And the Kambulo weavers say that there are 2 types of pluit by the shape of leaves. Gumamela may be Hibiscus rosacinensis, which has many cultivated varieties and hybrids. Among them, so far, only one particular kind of Gumamela has been identified as suitable for weaving by the Kambulo weavers. What I'm wearing today is the very first obi woven by Nena, purely with such Gumamela. The fitting is really comfortable, and breathability is really good. And I think as such, the reason why bast fibers clothes is popular in Japan is its distinctive texture and varieties, especially suitable for obi. And core textile fans believe that to emphasize its intrinsic value, and thread making and weaving should not be mechanized, and it is preferable to weave on backstrap rather than upright loom for technical reasons. And at most respect and compensation should be paid for such creation. And we consider connecting the Kamburo weavers communities with such textile fans is one way to contribute for this culture to be carried on. And by the way, the Kamburo Obi is giving me an opportunity to understand the value of the traditional culture of my own. Today, for my first time in my life, I'm wearing a kimono with the Kamburo Obi and speaking in public here in London. And actually, I was not really sure if I should do that until the last minutes. But I'm doing so as encouraged and inspired, especially by Benji and Libby and the 3 artists who presented on the day 1. Thank you, guys. And I feel like showing my own translocal learning and experiences that I gained through these workshops, through this symposium, with the outfits like this. And to me, that's what the fashion is all about. And thanks for this opportunity, Tina. And let's move on to the next slide. Fua should be Cymeraceae family, namely Salago in the Philippines. It is the only plant among the 10 that is used for both Bast textile and backcloth. The Salago fibers are exported to China, Korea, and Japan as paper materials. However, I've never heard of an episode of making thread with its fibers and woven into clothes in these countries. At first, I thought Fua was the paper mulberry because of the whitish color of the fibers. By the way, Fua is the local name given to Yukiko by local communities. And I'm not sure about the botanical name of the next one, Tuyud, except that the Bata dictionary implies that it may be Anonaceae family. And Topia should be the Molaceae family, a relative of breadfruits, namely pakak in the Philippines. In Kambulo, it is treasured as an excellent building material, but is now protected as it's threatened by habitat loss. Thus, it's used in minimal amount to make barkcloth huts only for festival. Okay. So why are there so many types of bast fiber textile and barkcloth remaining in Kambulo? Because the weavers and beaters have access to the nearby healthy forest with biodiversity. How could such forests be sustained? Through their forest commons. What does forest commons exactly mean? It means 1, inalahan, communal forest, and 2, pinug, de facto privately owned forest. It's de facto because in the Philippines, the law of 1975 stipulates that all land with a slope of 18% or more is state-owned. So therefore, the large part of the land of Ifugao is state-owned. However, the rights of residents to their ancestral domain were guaranteed under the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act 1997. So Pinugu reflects the underlying concept that private forest rights are not exclusive to the owner. In fact, the Kambulo weavers often collect wood materials to get bast fibers from Pinug of someone else. Likewise, villagers collect firewood from others' Pinug under certain agreements like periodically cutting weeds. As such, the rights of ownership, management, and use of Pinug do not fully match and rather complex and multi-layered. And moreover, in Kambulo, a barangay ordinance issued more than a decade ago stipulates that Pinugus that have returned to the forest would not be allowed to have their rights extended, and all of them should be returned to Inalahan. In this way, the forest commons are continuously transforming itself in response to changing environment. The Kambulo bast fiber weaving and barkcloth culture has been passed down by a small community of several weavers, craftsmen, and their families with the forest commons and the traditional knowledge and skills as its basis. The community has recently been revitalized through the exchanges with the Japanese textile artists, and there seems to be a momentum to inherit and further enrich this culture together with people inside and outside the village. The image of a cultural commons came to our minds as a common ground for people to organically gather, cultivate, co-learn, and collaborate to pass on this culture to the next generation, as well as creators everywhere. We consider this cultural commons being translocal in nature, and the key is linking of different localities to give rise to new ideas. And here the locality is treated, quote, as a resource instead of a factor that highlights the differences or incomparability of communities, unquote. Oops. The last slide. This is what we've seen so far, and we made this presentation as commons participants on behalf of the Kamburo Bast Fiber and andBarkcloth community. And our experience in Kamburo reminds us the inseparable bond between nature and culture. And we believe that it's important for the local community that can hear the voices of nature on the ground will continue to be the bearers of evolution of this unique culture, the way forward. And we all can learn a lot out of it. Thank you for listening.